Horror films, especially those with social and psychological undertones, often benefit from the unsettling power of subtlety and ambiguity. The 2022 Danish film Speak No Evil was one such example, skillfully using discomfort, cultural clashes, and human behavior to create an eerie, slow burn horror experience. However, the recent American remake of the same title, directed by James Watkins, strips away much of the original's potency, resulting in a film that is at best a pale imitation and at worst an unnecessary retelling. This video delves into the fundamental missteps of the remake, highlighting how it loses its original's tension, over-explains its themes, and makes questionable character choices, all while failing to add anything new or meaningful to the source material. The original Speak No Evil thrived on the subtle escalation of unease between the Danish couple and their unnervingly off-putting hosts. The film took its time, creating a sense of creeping dread through mundane but increasingly invasive social interactions. In contrast, the American remake treats this slow burn tension for more explicit and exaggerated moments, which significantly diminishes the film's unsettling atmosphere. For instance, in the original, much of the horror comes from small, seemingly innocuous actions that accumulate into a feeling of inescapable discomfort. In the remake, Paddy, played by James McAvoy, is introduced dragging a lounge chair across the poolside in a loud, attention-grabbing manner, immediately signaling to the audience that something is off. While this might seem like a harmless introduction, it sets the tone for a film that prefers to make its villains blatantly unsettling from the get-go, rather than letting the tension simmer. This is further exemplified by Paddy's crass behavior at the dining table, where he makes an unsavory joke about toilet paper to ward off another vacationing family. The original's nuanced social discomfort is replaced with a more heavy-handed approach, which robs the film of its slow-building horror. Both versions of Speak No Evil critique the way people often tolerate bad behavior to avoid conflict. However, the American remake takes this theme to an extreme that stretches believability. Louis and Ben, the central couple, seem to repeatedly ignore blatant red flags from their hosts, Paddy and Ciara, even as their behavior grows increasingly bizarre and sinister. While passive characters in horror films can serve a purpose, thus illustrating the dangers of politeness and social pressure, the remake pushes Louis and Ben's inaction to frustrating levels. Early in the film, when Paddy forces game into the mouth of a vegetarian Louis, the audience expects some form of pushback, yet Louis and Ben remain eerily compliant. Their passivity reaches absurd levels when they flee from Paddy and Ciara's countryside home in a moment of panic, only to return minutes later to retrieve their daughter's forgotten stuffed animal. This act, which seals their fate, feels like an artificial narrative contrivance rather than a plausible human decision. The original, while similarly frustrating in its depiction of passive characters, never stretches these themes to the point where it undermines the credibility of its protagonists. One of the hallmarks of effective horror is its ability to let events unfold naturally, leaving much to the viewer's imagination. The 2022 Speak No Evil understood this, leaving the motivations of its antagonists largely ambiguous. The horror lay not in the explanation but in the experience. In contrast, the American remake goes out of its way to over-explain the actions and motivations of its villains, diluting the impact of the film's thematic underpinnings. At one point, Paddy and Ciara directly tell Louis and Ben, "Because you let us," when asked why they are tormenting them. While this line is lifted from the original, the remake ruins its impact by continuing to explain the couple's motivation in further dialogue. This over-explanation removes the chilling ambiguity of the original and reduces the antagonists to mere plot devices, spelling out their evil intentions in a way that feels overly simplistic and didactic. Furthermore, the film includes moments like Paddy reciting Philip Larkin's poem, "This Be the Verse," a heavy-handed attempt to underline the film's theme about the failures of parenthood and family dysfunction. These moments feel clunky and out of place, further blunting the film's edge by making its themes too obvious. The predictability of the American No Speak Evil is another major flaw. One of the central mysteries in both films is the condition of Paddy and Ciara's son, Ant, who is unable to speak. In the original, this reveal is left to the final act, allowing the tension to build around the unsettling nature of the child's condition. However, the trailer for the remake gives away this twist far too early, revealing that Ant's inability to speak is due to a medical condition involving an underdeveloped tongue. This reveal robs the film of one of its central mysteries and undermines the shock value of the final act. By the time the movie reaches its climax, much of the suspense has already been dissipated. The audience is left waiting for the inevitable confrontation, which, while flashy and violent, feels more like a formality than a natural progression of the narrative. The original film's shocking and bleak ending, in which the hosts reveal themselves to be raiders with a murderous secret, is replaced with a more conventional showdown between the two couples. While this more action-packed conclusion might appeal to mainstream audiences, it detracts from the nihilistic horror that made the original so impactful. One of the most disappointing aspects of the American Speak No Evil is its failure to innovate or expand upon the original. Good remakes often bring something new to the table, either by exploring previously unexplored themes or adding a fresh perspective to the story. Unfortunately, Watkins' remake of Speak No Evil does the opposite. It strips away the original's depth and ambiguity, while adding little of value in return. Even the performances, which feature talented actors like James McAvoy and Mackenzie Davis, feel underwhelming. McAvoy, while charismatic as Paddy, plays the role with a cartoonish level of malevolence, lacking the subtle menace that made the original's antagonist so terrifying. Davis, as Lois, does her best with the material, but her character is ultimately reduced to a passive participant in the unfolding horror, robbing her of the agency she could have had in a more nuanced script. In the end, the American remake of Speak No Evil serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of remaking films that don't need to be remade. By softening the original's edges, over-explaining its themes and failing to innovate, the film loses the raw, unsettling power that made its predecessor so effective. While there are moments of tension and flashes of solid performances, they are overshadowed by a plot that feels predictable and a script that feels condescending. In the grand tradition of unnecessary horror remakes, Speak No Evil stands as yet another example of a film that speaks only to its own demise. That's just my opinion anyways.